how did you approach, I want to drive again? And like, how am I going to start putting to, I guess you're like, I need to put together a package rather than just be the quick guy.
Yeah. So when I was young, I was a bit more shy. Didn't really have the social skills to be able to work my way into any kind of situation. I think when I stopped, that was actually a really good life lesson. I learned how to just start conversations and how to interact with anybody and everybody by doing these car programs. So I was doing something called the Audi driving experience, and that was in Canada. So we'd do a winter program and a summer program, and we'd do like a tour in different areas, and we'd have 50 people a day, 100 people a day come through. So you'd be like taking care of a group of people at a time, and you'd have to speak, like public speak in front of everyone. And it's more of it's entertainment as well. It's obviously they're coming to learn and to push their cars to the limit. Or I guess in that situation was our cars, because we had a fleet of cars that people would sign up to the program and then drive our cars.
Yeah.
So we'd have to educate them, obviously, but it's a fun experience. So you want it to be a good time for them. So I had a really good mentor who I worked alongside. His name's Jeff Boyce. He also used to race, and he stopped racing, kind of ran out of money, and did a lot of these driving programs, but he was very outgoing. And I was very shy at the beginning. I was 21 when I started doing that stuff. That's when I stopped driving or racing cars. So from 21 to 25, I wasn't doing any racing. And my very first program, I was like not talking to anybody, and I just listen and watch what Jeff was doing. And he was cracking jokes, and I obviously picked up on that style a little bit of how he was interacting with people, but then I developed my own style of speaking with everyone, and then just got my confidence. I found my own confidence, and coincidentally, that's around the same time that I started, dating my wife now. So that also helped a little bit. I got a little bit more confident, and in all facets of my life. So, that's probably why I even got the chance to race again, because I had the courage to even go and just pick up the phone and call teams. And I started doing my research as to where I could go and what teams would give me the opportunity with I had no money, zero. I was in so much debt from just trying to live overseas in Europe, trying to make that dream happen. It's I wish I could go back in time and tell myself it was never going to happen. It was not going to happen. You got to get back to reality, because even all these guys that are making it in Formula One, maybe 1 out of a million makes it with no money. But it's all the right things have to happen at the right moment, where the commercial partners, because at the end of the day, you need to have money drives the sport. If you don't have money, you don't get the service, you don't get the tires. Somebody has to pay for things.
Exactly.
And it's what people don't get in motorsports is it's not always the best guys that make it. It's just people, obviously you need to be very good, but there's so many talented people that never make it because the right things never line up. And obviously you hear these great stories of some guys making it to F1 with no money, like Lewis, let's say. But at the end of the day, he still kind of had some kind of, I don't understand it fully, and nobody can ever, speak his story other than him or other people that have made it with no money. But there's always a way. There's always some kind of method behind the madness. And I was trying to force something that was never going to happen in my current situation. Once I was released from Red Bull, I should have stopped single seaters. That's when I should have pivoted with whatever support I had to GT racing. And I wish I wouldn't have been so fixated on F1, because I was really I can make it. I can make it. I knew I had the ability to make it, but never had the whole package. So anyway, I learned when I stopped racing, kind of had my eyes open a little bit. I learned how to speak to people, learn how to kind of finagle the business side of the sport, and actually found a way to put people together, partners together, even though I didn't need to. That's where it started clicking. Okay, I can get a car dealership involved, because we're racing Porsches. There's a Porsche dealership that's brand new. Maybe they want to get some exposure in this racing series, because it's Porsche, the DNA of Porsche is like motorsport. It's like in their core DNA. So it worked out where I got the chance to race. And then a few days before the season started, I brought a Porsche dealership into the program, and the team owner's like, wow, nobody's ever brought a sponsor to the team. Like, you had the ride anyway, but you brought a partner that's going to pay for the season, or the majority of the season.
That's
and
cool.
Then from there, some more partners came on board, because it's like, oh, you have a Porsche dealership, then, oh, let's get this oil company, and then this, and you just put the pieces together. So I wouldn't have been able to do that unless I had that 4-year break where I learned how to speak to people. And it came to the point where I was even doing product presentations. So new cars were coming out. Like, for instance, my last project, one of my last projects was the Q7. We did a countrywide tour. So I was in charge of, I don't know how many, like 10 dealerships. I would just go from dealership to dealership, and we'd do evenings of launching the Q7. So I'd have to do like a 5-minute piece on talking about the details of the car, appearance, like the design elements, performance, and so on. And that was in front of like 500 people. So I learned how to speak in front of big groups, and that was a game changer for me. I mean, everything happens in life for a reason, and I'm not, like I said at the beginning when we started speaking, I'm not one to make excuses. I could have easily just said, oh, why me? Like, this sucks. I was the chosen one. I should have made it. Like, I don't have those delusions in my mind. I live in reality, and I know that you have to work hard. I was in so much debt, you have no idea. Like, really bad. People think, I love it online. People are so quick to judge you. Everyone will call you a rich kid. Oh, you're just a rich kid, spoiled brat. Man, it's crazy online what people can say about you. They just assume, but nobody sees. I always love to say, you have to be like a duck, right? A duck looks so smooth above the water, but underwater, the feet are going wild. And that's just kind of how it is. Everything looks smooth on the surface. When you look through social media, everyone can make assumptions about you, what you have around you. Look, I have a really nice room. It didn't come out of thin air. I worked so hard for everything. And that was kind of like the moment where I said, stop feeling sorry for yourself. I had my 4 years to learn and, get back going. I had to make money in that period. Nobody was going to spoon feed me. My parents didn't have any money. They were in debt because they sold a lot of stuff to get me even through go-karts. And it always sucks when you see these kind of things online, but you develop thick skin. Everyone's so quick. And especially nowadays, I feel like there's so much hatred in the world and online. It's so easy to judge from behind a computer screen and behind your keyboard, but nobody knows the struggles, right, that you go through. Everyone has their own story. Like, I'm sure you've gone through your own journey, and here you are now. You're doing great.